The man was freezing to death, but instead of wrapping his clothes tighter, he did something strange. Shaking violently, he unzipped his jacket and threw it aside. Then, he took off his pants, and even his underwear. It was 30 degrees below zero. He curled up naked in the snow, as the wind cut into his skin like a knife. His face twisted in pain, and his teeth drifted together uncontrollably. He tried breathing onto his hands, but the tiny bit of warmth was not enough to save him. Even as his body shook, he refused to put his clothes back on. He looked at a bag of flour in his hand, and then at the white snow on the ground. After a hard struggle in his mind, he made a painful choice. He poured out his precious flour and filled the bag with snow instead. He tucked the bag against his bare chest, hoping his body heat would melt the snow into warm water to help him survive the cold. However, by the time night fell, he hadn't been able to drink a single drop. Worse, his wet clothes were still soaked. The man was furious. He couldn't understand why he was so unlucky. First, he got lost while skiing, and then he fell into a freezing lake. As he shouted at the sky, he suddenly saw something. He stepped forward to look closer and was overjoyed. On a distant ridge stood a house that looked warm and safe. He danced like a happy child until the freezing wind bit him again. To stay alive, he put his damp clothes back on and crawled into a gap between rocks. Watching the distant light of the house, he fell asleep, believing he would be rescued the next day. The next morning, he finally drank some melted water. He checked his phone and radio to make sure they worked, then headed toward the house hidden in the mist. At first he walked steadily, but soon his vision began to blur. He was starving, and the wind felt like needles stabbing his skin. His legs felt as heavy as lead, but he kept moving toward the peak. Just a few steps from his goal, his body gave out. He collapsed into the snow and lost consciousness. He woke up a full day later, nearly buried in the deep snow. As he struggled to stand, a sharp pain shot through his right leg. He pulled up his pant leg and saw his sock was soaked in blood. His lower leg was swollen and dark purple. He knew that if he didn't act fast, the sock would fuse to his skin as the blood dried. Taking a deep breath, he gripped the edge of the sock and pulled hard. The skin tore away with the fabric. The man screamed in agony, his whole body shaking. He tried to calm down and looked at the piece of skin stuck to his sock. After a long, quiet moment of thinking, the man made a desperate move. The man looked at the piece of his own skin. In a moment of pure desperation, he slowly put it into his mouth. But as soon as he bit down, the overwhelming smell of blood hit him, and he felt a strong urge to vomit. In the end, his logic won over his hunger, but he didn't throw the skin away. He carefully tucked it back into his shirt, as a last resort good luck charm for survival. After a short rest, he kept going. This time he learned from his mistakes. He kept his eyes closed and felt his way forward to avoid getting dizzy. When he finally opened his eyes, he froze. He rubbed his eyes, hoping it was just a trick of his tired mind, but the mountaintop was empty. The warm cabin he thought he saw was gone. It had never existed. Despair hit him like a tidal wave. He punched the ground and screamed into the valley, letting out all his frustration. When he finally calmed down, he realized the cabin was likely just a hallucination caused by the extreme cold. Still, he decided to gamble one last time. Dragging his frozen legs, he pushed toward the summit, determined to find a way out. As night fell again, a pair of glowing eyes blocked his path. He turned to run, but a low growl behind him revealed a second black wolf closing in. He knew if he backed down now, they would tear him apart. Gritting his teeth, he raised his skis and charged at them with a loud roar. The sudden attack scared the wolves away. He ran the other way and found a hidden hollow tree. Inside, he found the skeleton of an animal. Starving, he searched the bones for any scrap of food, but there wasn't a single bite left. To make matters worse, his phone died from the cold. Back home, his mother was worried sick. She drove to his rental cabin and found his clothes folded neatly, but the dishes in the sink were covered in mold. She knew something was wrong and called the mountain rescue team. They immediately sent a helicopter to search the snowy peaks. Up on the mountain, the man heard a roar in the sky. At first, he thought it was another hallucination, but the sound got louder. He looked up and saw the helicopter. He waved his skis and shouted, but the thick forest acted like a shield, hiding him from the rescuers' view. By the time he struggled out of the deep snow and into the clearing, the plane was flying away. The rescuers were looking ahead. No one thought to look behind them. The man collapsed in the snow, his strength completely gone. As his vision blurred, he thought of his mother. He couldn't imagine how she would survive without him. This thought gave him a spark of life, and he managed to survive until the 8th day. By now he was so weak he could only stand by leaning on his skis. He knew he would die soon without food. He reached into his shirt and pulled out that piece of his own skin. He hesitated, but thinking of his mother, he closed his eyes and forced himself to chew. The terrible taste made his stomach turn, but he forced it down, doing whatever it took to stay alive for one more day. The man ate every bit of the skin, but he knew this tiny amount of food wasn't enough. To survive, he had to find a signal for his radio. With his last bit of strength, he decided to climb to the very top of the mountain. He used his skis like crutches, crawling forward on his knees. Just as he reached a small slope near the peak, a fierce wind nearly knocked him down. He leaned into the skis, moving inch by inch, until he finally stood on the summit. He held the radio as high as he could, his heart pounding with hope, but the screen remained blank, no signal. His body finally gave out, and he collapsed into the snow, unconscious once again. When he woke up, he tried to stand, but his legs were useless. They simply wouldn't move. Refusing to give up, he dragged his body through the snow, until he reached the center of the peak. He prayed to every god he could think of, and looked at the radio one last time. Still, there was no miracle. To make matters worse, the battery dropped from 5% to 4%. At that moment, a strange peace washed over him. The struggle and the fear vanished, leaving only his quiet breath in the frozen air. Lying on the ice, he pressed the record button to leave a final message for his mother. "Mom, it's me. I don't know what to say, and I don't think I have much time. I just want you to know, I'm okay." After sharing his last regrets, he looked out at the mountain he had conquered and slowly closed his eyes. But just as the radio began to fade, a miracle happened. The man survived. Because of the severe frostbite, doctors had to remove his legs from the knees down. It was a heavy price, but with his mother's constant love and encouragement, he returned to the snow-covered mountains just 1 year later. Those 8 days of life and death changed him forever. He beat his past addictions and realized that life isn't just about oneself. He learned that when every survival instinct fails, love for family is the strongest medicine. It is the one thing that can give you a final breath of life just when you think you can't go on.